like Frank said, we are going to work with some Nfield data, because Nfield is there to collect a lot of data, but in the end you need to do something with this, and therefore you usually have to form your data into something that another package just meant to data process your data can understand. So sorry, my mouse was not working as expected. The agenda for today is just first about some general remarks about exporting that will be combined actually mainly with demonstrating this. Then talk a bit about the NIPO DSC, which is the component we have as a plugin for dimensions and SPSS, and we'll show you something about that, and then we will have some time for some questions. Because we collect our data with Nfield, and last week in the session my colleague showed you what we actually collect: closed answer data, open answer data, para data, and then you have all this data, and then you need to do something with it. Now, first of all, this data contains everything in a coded form. So in a way, to get that ready for data processing, we need to link some text with it. And that is done based on the questionnaire. So I grab the questionnaire, fit that, no, close, but I hope you can see it, but it is slightly. Let's go. Yeah, that's better. I just grabbed a simple questionnaire where I ask for age. Create some bands from the age, usage of a product, some brands awareness, and then a matrix with these brands itself. And if I collect the data for this short questionnaire in Nfield, it will give me a list with some data. The dot file with the closed answer data, the .o file with the open answers, and the .csv file with the para data. And in this case, I also have my questionnaire, and I already exported the variables. And the variables are one of the things we need for the export to the DSC, which I will show you later. But first of all, we can also do some exports from the NIPO Online developer. Unfortunately, these icons might be a bit small, so I will go because they are here to do the exports. But I can also show you from the Odin menu, and it might be a little bit more clear. Here at the bottom, you will see we have the export options. A few of them are not used for Nfield anymore, but we kept them in for backward compatibility. But they might still come in handy if you know where to use it for. The option Diana, and then those of you who are already a bit longer customer would know that Diana was our data processing platform, which has been abandoned for some years ago. But it still lives forward with the DSC. And also when you use a tool like the read survey tool, then it still uses the Diana export for the input. We also have the possibility to go into detail about this Diana export, by the way, in a short time, but just first give you all the options we have. Triple S is a standard that was developed, let's think around 20 years ago, that was supposed to become the standard for exchanging statistical data between packages. Still exists and is used now and then, but not very often, so I won't spend much time on this. Then we have two options for SPSS. Well, actually the SPSS portable is still left there because the old format was there to be able to use the SPSS format on the different platforms SPSS offered. But nowadays, SPSS only offers the PC version. Yeah, I don't know why, but even the Apple version has been abandoned. So we only have the Windows version, Microsoft Windows version left. Then we have some very specific exports. One is the export to a scribe, which is for the open answers. A scribe is a coding module used by some companies. We still support this, and I think it is still being used with our customers as well. Quantime used to be, or actually the product Quantum of the Quantime company, used to be a data processing platform used by quite a few companies in the past, and still in use with some companies, I heard. So that's why we also kept that one. The export for images and sound is for our NIPO Fieldwork system product, so I won't discuss this here. In those days, we collected all the images and sound in packaged files, kind of zip files, and with this option, you could actually export them to separate files. Then you see here another Nfield product, Nfield Code, which is still available as a useful tool, as a coding module on our NIPO.com website. Some companies are indeed still using it as well. Coding open answers is still a business that requires attention, and some people use a scribe, others use Nfield Code, others use other tools for this. And the last one, export X file. Yeah, the X file was actually the file with the code frame. And the code frame can either come from a scribe or from Nfield code. And you could extract them from the data. So you could actually use the code frame in a more friendly format. And actually also use them on import again when you get your codings back from the coding platform. But the ones that are still much in use is the first one, the Diana export and the SPSS PC export. So let's first have a look at the Diana export. All those exports, when you perform them, will come up with a dialog box with lots of options. And the options I've chosen in this case are the ones that are also present when you do a variable export with your data download from the Nfield platform. Once you download, you can dialog where it's asked what you want to download. One of the options is a variables file, and the variables file contains the description of the data. And that's actually what we define here as well. So it contains the text, the labels, which has to be associated with the data in the background. I will discuss them briefly. Because some people still might like to use this export instead of the export from the Nfield platform, because here there are a couple of options you can mark or unmark that control the generation of text mainly. To start with, there's the drop down at the top with the language. Well, many of you know, the questionnaire can contain many languages. And usually the default language will be the one as well as used for the report as well. But in case you want to use a different language, for instance, if your questionnaire, the technical questionnaire, the default language is programmed in English, and you have a language section in there in Dutch, and then your Dutch customer might still like to have the report in Dutch, and then you can change the default language to Dutch here. So your labels will all be in Dutch as well. Add filters to variables. That is an option that works for if statements in the questionnaire. If you have an if statement on a question, then that filter will be applied to the variable as well. I would not use that option myself. I always like to contain everything and also be able to use that variable without a filter. And if you apply a filter, it is always filtered. And that's not what you would like. Sometimes you want to use the total base rather than a restricted base. Asked to just that small portion of people that answer the question. Then variable name in front of the question text. That's one of the options that is turned on automatically. That's just if you have the name of a variable, that's then it can also be part of the label text. And if I have a question like "What's your age?" That's question 1 in this case. Then I explicitly told it here that this is actually a variable with the name href. This href is then the variable name, and that variable name will then be part of the text that will be generated. So hrefs, what's your age? Use code N if no code text is specified. That means that it will actually insert the text code N if you just have codes that do not have a label. So it will create labels for you. Instead of the variable names, you can also have the question number in front, the text question actually with the question number in front of the question text. Write random and order numbers. Those are the numbers you get when you specify positions behind your star multi or behind your star random. Then it will save the order of the answers. And with star random, it will save the randomization of your question. If you also want to have those in your report, then you will have to write this to the variables, and so you will have to turn this option on. So that's on by default. You see here as well that we have the insert LF, insert LF, insert LF. So LF stands for align feed, and actually that works for the products, the Diana we had in the past, where then actually align feed was generated with some meta commands that is just LF between square brackets. But unfortunately, that doesn't work for the SPSS or Dimensions platform. So we leave that unmarked. We have the option to include questions without text and unused questions. Questions without text are skipped by default because they cannot be asked. And unused questions can also be the ones that are skipped with the go to. But still, you want to have those in your data sometimes. That's a difference with the ones that are null evaluating filter and dummy questions. That's, for instance, the question I have here for the age bands, where we have then the different age bands defined nicely on a question. But it is defined as a dummy, so I actually create the content of this inside my questionnaire script with the include commands in this case. And after that, if I export it, it will be included in my data processing file. but then I have to turn this option on. This option is turned on as well by default for Nfield export. Generate codes for scale questions. That is an option that actually more or less like the use code N4 when no code text specified. But scale questions are not used that often anymore. That's using a scale, for instance, also in a foreign question, which was only implemented in Nfield Barcelona, and after that we introduced the matrix, which took over the whole purpose of the scale question, and the matrix itself as a good readable export. Better than we had for scale questions. The no duplicate text for open and other questions was specifically something for Diana, cosmetic option. Then a few ones that are especially for the DSC. For the DSC, the system will create additional command lines which contain additional information actually about that variable. That can be something like that there is a button for a category rather than the category itself, or if there is there is some hierarchy, then those will be put in what we call command lines in the variable files. Those are, I will not say really commands, they are meta commands to tell the system how to work with those. Then indeed we can create a matrix text for the DSC labels. If you don't do that, then the matrix text will not be included in the labels. And that do not substitute loop variables is there to but if you are using a repeat loop, for instance, that the place where you use the star question mark to insert that text will not be substituted, but will just keep the text between brackets, the text of with the name of the variable in the questionnaire. But I love to have that substituted, so I know that it was about brand A rather than it was about just the tag. Well, the last two, those are a few options that are necessary. Well, the first one is necessary to specify the maximum codes that can be used in the variable. And I set it here to 10,000 because I think that's the current max for SPSS and dimensions. If there are more codes, that can be sometimes the case. For instance, if you have a category that has all the train stations in Italy, for instance, you have around 30,000 or 50,000 stations, and then that would not fit in one variable. So then it creates multiple variables describing the same data positions in question, but You can then get the information split over those variables, but you still have the information. And the line length is just a visible item, which is not really applicable for this. The open var file after export is just something you can use when you do the export to open it in your NIPO of the developer. And the last one is kind of important. And always mark this, I would say nowadays. All the files in Nfield are in Unicode format. And so, if you export the var file from Nfield, you also get it in Unicode format. But otherwise, you might just lose the special characters that are used in some languages. So always work in Unicode, then you're on the safe side. Then if you set all the options and you like them and you want to use them the next time, then you can save it. Then it will save the options you have chosen. Click OK. Then it opens the variable files in my on the developer. And just to give you an idea, I'm not going to explain all the details, but for those just the fast one, the name is defined with a star followed by the name, then the positions it occupies in the data, then the column, and then the text, which is the variable label. If there is text there, then it will be exported as star tag. If it is a code or a number, it will be either just the positions or star SNG when it has single coded. And if it is multiple coded, just star MV. And then the category numbers just as they are in the questionnaire script. And you see for this matrix I have in my questionnaire, it actually created a line with com, which stands then what was meant command. And it's created in this case an SPSS table for me based on the information I gave here, that this matrix table usage. That will create the hierarchical table that SPSS or dimensions can use to tabulate this question as a table. And if I would have used, for instance, a button here, say no answer. I have to close this. Use the same options, can open it. And then you see for this one that it has just here that, okay, it inserted the no answer as a code 9, but now it tells it that was actually a button that was used. So those processing the data with SPSS or can process this one differently than the others. Okay, that's the export to Diana, and that we're going to use those variables soonish in the for the DSC. But I first want to show you as well the export to SPSS PC. Like with the export to Diana, here again we have a nice dialog with a lot of options. And the options I've selected and have saved in the past are the ones that are used commonly. Yeah, at the top it still says sub-survey. In Nfield we do not have sub-surveys like we have in the NIPO fieldwork system. So you can always leave that on main survey. But you can have different languages here as well. You can choose the default language or any other language defined in your questionnaire for export. Like I already said, always use Unicode. In this case, we can even choose or write data in Unicode and also use the Unicode text for the labels. So keep that in place. Retain Odin data format. Well, that's actually more or less in combination with the next one to include the open answers. If I include open answers, then the open answers have to be inserted as variables in between the categories. That's an option, but some people do not like that and want the open answers to be at the end of the record, and that's something you can do with retain Odin data format. Then you have to specify how much space you want to reserve for per open answer. And by default, it is set to a quite high number, something like 32,000 positions. If you have a few open answers in your star opens in your questionnaire, that might not be a problem. But if you have many open answers, then 200 times that open answer will be okay. But if you use the 32,000 times that number of open answers, then the record length will explode. And then really you will not have an issue with SPSS yet, but you will already have an issue with the data file that will be created. And also those huge data files will take a long time to process. So keep a realistic number here for the open answers. In most cases, the open answers you want to process in the data processing package are usually the other brands, and those other brands do not have that many characters. If you want the very long open answers, then usually you go to another platform, like Scribe or whatever, and then you do not need them in your data. Like with the export to Diana, we also have the options here to include text with, the questions without text and unused questions, and the questions with no evaluating filter dummy questions. You can include a save script. Well, include save script just means that at the end of the generated script, we will save the sub file. Then we have same options as we had in the there. So I will not repeat those. Apart from the last one, which is use code number for multiple digital fields. That means actually that if you have multiple answers, and like you see here in the back still, I numbered them 1, 2, 3, 4 nicely in order. But if you have a different numbering order here, then you might also like to have those expressed in the names in the variables in SPSS. And that can be done by using this option. Then it will use the numbers you used in the questionnaire script, rather than it will renumber them to just from scratch. Then every multiple answer, because multiple answer doesn't exist in SPSS as a direct possibility. We split them in mentioned, not mentioned. So every category here will become a separate variable. You can combine them later in SPSS again, but for now we have this. And then we split them, and you get a mentioned, not mentioned. You can use different text if you like. The options here are all set based on the maximums set by SPSS, and they are just set to the maximum. If I want to do an export from the outer developer to SPSS, and I want to include the open answers, then I have to do one more thing here before I forget to mention. Because the NIPO fieldwork system always used a different naming convention for the data files, the file name extensions. We have to make a small change to the open answers file when we want to have them exported as well. And that's by going to rename them and then remove the dot after the base name and the O. And that way the system will recognize this is the open answer file and use this. Okay. Then I say okay. Okay, yeah. That's because actually the O file is empty, so I should, well, I will remove that. Okay. It was fast. Well, was it too fast? Well, it was very fast. Of course, there are not that many records here. But you see, it created for me an SPS file, an SPSS syntax file, and an ext file, a file with the extension ext, which contains a combination of the dot and the O file. And if I go into SPSS, I can say file open syntax. Is there already? It created a file handle, created the data list, variables, all the labels and levels, and then at the end it says execute to everything done, and saves it as a sub file. And if I just do it run, it's ready. And if I look at the data, it's there as well. Okay. Next, we also have the possibility nowadays to use the DSC for SPSS and also for dimensions. And this is done based on the variables files and can be used by importing the data. Yeah, so instead of creating the SPSS file and all the things, I can go here and say file, import data, and then at the bottom you will find data collection data. And first we set the data type, and there we will see the NIPO metadata. Then we set the location. Well, still set it down to the same folder. My variables file. And I can say where to find my case data, which is of the same, and the location. Okay. Well, I can name project, but it's not necessary. And then say okay. And then, okay, which ones do you want there? I can also add some system variables even. Select all and say okay. And then I get the same file. And this is a bit easier because when you download your data from Nfield, you already can include the variable file, and you only have to open that one using the import. Then you're ready. The only thing is you have to save it as a soft file. Another option is, which is also used by quite a few companies nowadays, which is to use dimensions itself. The base professional. You can write a script that does the import for you. This is a very basic script and does not provide much to talk about. For instance, it creates it takes as input the dot file and var file, and as output it just produces DDF and MBD file with simple names. The script does not even check whether the files exist and deletes them. So if the file is already there, you run it the same again, then you get error messages. So there are a lot of things that you could improve in this script to make it more versatile. But, this does what it needs to do. Press the run button. And then here at the bottom, it will tell me that processed, everything is done. 50 records indeed. And there's one thing I would like to add as well for those who are scripters. In the, I already remarked about the use of star var. Star var is there to specify as explicit variable name for the export, and then that will replace a generic v1, which would then normally be output. It will output without a var would give you the question number preceded by a v for variable and a v 9001, v101. But it is nicer to have the variable name as this. If you also like to have a different label for your variable, you can specify with star label an alternative label. So just say, for instance here, age respondent. And then age respondent will be the variable label rather than what is your age. For the variable, we have nowadays a new option, that's the ID. And if you use star ID rather than a variable, then this ID can also will also be part of your export. And then in the configuration of your DSC, you could say that you would like to use the IDs rather than the question numbers. And that same is, instead of the categories used, the category numbers, in this case used, and you can use IDs for those categories. And then those IDs will become part of your export. I can just then say here ID. I just have not a real brand here, so brand type. And then that ID will be used rather than the category one. Okay. Any questions? I see one question, I think, in the chat. We have many variables. How can we export the data without doing it manually? Yeah, I mean, variable files can become very huge, actually, before running into a problem.
I think when I read the question that this is very specific about the Kantar exporting process, which has a limitation on the amount of variables. So let's not get into this in a generative academy.
No.
And then we have the second one is the import to the SPSS data collection not running with the script needs to work with dimension software. I don't understand this question. Do you, Hans?
Is the yeah, I mean, if this is regarding SPSS, yeah, so that's the SPSS. Yeah, if you still need to install the NIPO DSC to be able to work with the SPSS. Yeah, the second, the way I showed you here with SPSS works both with the SPSS and with Base Professional, and actually it also works with Survey Reporter. As long as you have the DSC installed. Then it is able to work with it.
That seems to be all the questions for now.
Okay. I got to use, but there is not much. Okay, some final remarks. The recordings of the session will be available later this week. Update of the DSC manual is under construction. Actually, I found a few things I was updating it myself, and I found a few things that I still want to add. So that is coming.
Once the DSC manual is ready, we will put it in the same place as all the other manuals in the Nfield Manager.
Seems good spot for me.
And then if you have a suggestion for a topic, please write to your help desk. As said, this was the last of our update academies, so we will continue with our regular academies the coming weeks. We will run one about how to the security of Nfield, and we had a few updates the last months about quota. We will run an academy on that, and we will run an academy on the new options in the online of the developer. We'll probably do those last two in one single academy. You will get invitations for these academies the coming weeks. If there are no final questions, then we're done. Thank you for your attention. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.